So welcome to another episode of E4 Explicit Podcast. I'm Corey, and this is Nicole Stott, right?
Yes.
I wanted to say
Good
Scott
job.
for like
Yeah,
ever.
don't.
And I'm like,
That's
there's
right.
no C in there. So Nicole Stott, who I'm gonna actually let you explain yourself because you're fascinating, and you are a person who I dream about to talk to on a regular basis, and that's why I wore this NASA shirt to represent. So I will let you explain who you are.
Who am I? Well, I am a retired NASA astronaut. I was with NASA for, gosh, it seems a long time, like about 28 years
Wow.
between my time as a space shuttle, space station engineer at the Kennedy Space Center, working as a NASA engineer. And then I had a couple years in Houston flying as a flight engineer on the shuttle training aircraft, that modified jet they used to train the astronauts to land the space shuttle in.
What?
And then in 2000 got selected to be an astronaut and flew twice back, golly, like this, I can't believe it was this long ago either. Like 2009 was my first flight, a little over 3 months on the space station. And then 2011 on the final flight of the Space Shuttle Discovery, which was 2 weeks. We went to the space station way too short. I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm happy I got to go for that 2 weeks,
Right.
but pull my clawing hands off the hatch to get me back in the shuttle to come
Really?
home. Yeah. And then as part of that training for astronaut, I got to spend 3 weeks living underwater on an undersea mission at Aquarius. So I can claim Aquanaut, which I really love being able to claim that. That's
Mhm.
super cool to me. And now retired artist, I guess. I always say that with like little quotes marks around it because sometimes I feel like I'm being disrespectful to professionally trained and really talented artists, and I'm using this way to let my dogs out.
I hear him like,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's got like that gremlin-y noise.
That's what my dog Boomer
Yeah.
does. I don't even get me started.
It would turn into being really vocal in a
Yeah.
couple seconds
Wow,
though. So
wow, wow, wow.
yeah, and just finished writing my first book, so author and mom is probably the most important role I can
That's awesome.
add in all that. Yeah.
That's great. Well, you're also, like I said before we even got really going, you're a total badass. Like, you know,
Okay. Yeah. I got
yeah,
to wait
you
for
got
other
to add
people to
that.
say
You got to
that.
check the box off because that's important. Um,
Okay.
Anybody that's been to not Earth and been off of Earth, I consider a badass. You're the 10th woman to do a spacewalk
Hmm.
in NASA's history, which is incredible. So, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. I'm super jacked for this
Absolutely. Thanks for
conversation.
wearing the shirt.
Oh man,
Space
I've had
shuttle.
this. Listen, I told you, I'm obsessed with like outer space, but more of like a. I'm terrified of it. I'm not like I want to go there. If NASA was like, because I'm in DC. I'm like right down the street from
Yeah,
NASA. They
headquarters
can be
there.
like, hey Corey, you want to go to space where or the moon? Absolutely not, NASA. Not. I'm scared of heights. I would definitely pass out on the way. Not my thing. So I want to live vicariously through you.
Okay.
Uh,
That's what
but
I'm doing through my friends now that are
yeah,
like,
right. So anyway, I just think it's fascinating. So okay, first off, I noticed you said you got selected in 2000.
yes.
You didn't even go until 2009.
Right. And that's because so when my class, our group of what our name is the Bugs, was selected
Wow.
in 2000, even when we got selected, we were told it would probably be, 5 to 6 years before we flew.
What?
And that's because just, there's not a lot of flights, whatever what the manifest was, the flight pace for the space shuttle then. We were starting to fly with our Russian partners on the space station on the
Right.
Soyuz. So that was opening up some more opportunity. But there really weren't, it's not like we were launching every week with
Right.
6 people on board.
All on board. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I started then we were just, we were beginning the build of the International Space Station. And so we all knew coming in that the expectation was 5 to 6 years. I mean, we hoped it would be less, right?
Right. 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 Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, you always do. But in 2003, sadly, we had the Columbia accident,
Mhm.
which then put things out, like 2 to 3 more years. So
Right.
I think the first person to fly from my class was in late 2008. So yeah, 5 to 6 turned into 8 to 10.
Right. Right. And I mean, I can imagine the training and also, first of all, the selection process to become an astronaut. I mean, everybody growing up, I want to be an astronaut or I want to be whatever. Like how, I feel like you've prepared yourself for a long time up until that point to be selected. So you were probably like ready to rock that day. But like,
I don't know. I think we all think we're ready to rock
right.
that day,
Right.
for sure, in our own minds, how awesome we are. But I felt really well prepared coming in,
Right.
I didn't really think about the real possibility of even considering applying to be an astronaut
Hmm.
until I had already been working for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years as a NASA engineer at the Kennedy Space Center.
Really?
And that, I mean, I watched the moon. I'm old enough. I watched the moon landing, have vivid memory of
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah. And I think even at 6 or 7, you realize that's a really extraordinary thing, right?
Oh, my God.
But I just kind of grew up thinking this is really cool. That's something other special people get to
That's
do.
literally my thought. Yeah. I'm like, I can
Yeah.
never astronaut.
Yeah. I mean,
Forget about
nobody
it.
told me I couldn't do it. I'm really, really thankful for that because sadly, there are some kids and adults even who get to, no, you
Yeah.
couldn't. Or,
Yeah.
oh, it's such a slim
Oh,
chance,
for sure. Yeah.
you know? But while I was working at KSC, I mean, what was I doing? I was getting space shuttles ready for astronauts to fly.
Right.
And I started to meet and see a lot of astronauts coming through. And maybe I was slow, but I realized, wow, 99.9% of an astronaut's job is not flying in space. It's
Right.
down here on Earth. And at least 80% of that was a lot like what I was already doing as an
Really?
engineer. So I'm like, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could think about it. And it really took a couple of people that I considered to be mentors that I worked with at Kennedy and just asked them, what do you think about this? And thankfully, they didn't discourage me.
That's incredible.
They didn't say, oh, Nicole, you'd make the greatest astronaut there ever was.
Right.
They might think that now, I don't know.
Right.
But all they did was convince me to do the one thing I had total control of in the process, which was pick up the pen and fill out the application.
Wow.
Because otherwise it's not happening, right?
Right. You have to apply.
Yeah. And I thank them every time I see them for just that little like push that kind of got my self-confidence where it needed to be to
Right.
just do that, pick up the pen, which you physically had to do back then. You had to pick up the pen back in the late
Right.
90s
Yeah. Yeah. There's no
to fill out the
iPads or,
application.
yeah, there's no
Now you
online
can,
application.
now you can go online.
Right.
But that was a big deal to just make that decision to do that. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's so cool that like those little things that happen
Mhm.
to now you're here today. Like otherwise,
Yeah.
who knows? You
And I
might
could
be
have written myself off. I could
right.
have
Right.
totally eliminated that
Right.
awesome opportunity for my life by just not doing the thing I had control of.
Right. Right. Exactly. That's incredible. I didn't know that most astronauts are like most of their job is down like on the earth.
Yeah. So think about it. What I had 104 days in space,
Mhm.
right? But I was in the astronaut office for 15 years.
Wow.
And I mean, even the not time and space stuff though is really amazing. The people we get to work with. We've got the international partnership for the space station program. The travel, the people I got to meet and work with that way. The training to do spacewalks in a big pool, flying the
That's yeah.
robotic arm and
Yeah.
simulators, and just helping develop new programs, the procedures for things. I mean, it was really, really awesome just from the ground standpoint as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So how long is the training to do it to from like, okay, Nicole, you're not selected because I know that took 9 years,
Yeah.
but like when they really were like, all right, this is your flight schedule, the moon, whatever not the moon, but the space station is in, the orbit, whatever
Yeah.
it had to be of when all the stars, no pun intended,
Aligned.
how long was that?
Well, that was so when you first get selected to be an astronaut, you're called an ASCAN or an astronaut candidate, right?
Oh, wow.
And I'm gonna lean over here and shut the door now.
Okay.
And
I'm an
that is
ASCAN.
that's about 2 years of really a lot like going back to school. You're going to learn all about the shuttle systems,
Oh,
the
cool.
spacecraft you're going to fly on, the space station. You start to get introduced to the international partners on the space station program and learning about their hardware and science
Wow.
that's in space. The spacewalk training, the robotic arm training, and then we're doing things like I mentioned, the Aquanaut thing, like going and living for 3 weeks underwater as this like perfect analog to what it would be like to live and work in space.
Really?
Yeah, it's the best. Um, and then yeah, like supporting missions coming up, all that, working as Capcom, and there's plenty to do, right?
Right.
And then once you are assigned to the mission, back in those olden days when I was assigned, which was about 2006 for my 2009 flight, it was roughly 3 years from the time you were assigned to the time you flew, because you went through this whole backup training flow.
Right.
There were people that were going to fly ahead of you. You kind of backed them up, learned what that was going on there, and then you rolled into your prime training.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was about 3 years. So in
Whoa.
that, because it's the International Space Station, over 50% of my time was spent out of the country, in Star City, Russia, in Cologne, Germany, in Tsukuba, Japan, Montreal,
What?
Canada,
That's sick.
because we trained as a crew with our international partners as well. And so that was pretty intense. It'd be 5 weeks in Russia, 4 weeks at home, 3 weeks in Germany, home, back
Oh
and
my
forth like
God.
that for 3 years.
That's
And then I got
incredible.
assigned to a shuttle flight, and that was a year of training.
The space station, is someone always there?
Yes. Yeah, there's always, like, now we have a crew of 7 up there since we've started flying crews on the Dragon, on the SpaceX vehicle. So we have
Mhm.
7 crew members. When I was there, 6 was the crew side. All It's one crew that represents all 15 of those different countries that are
Wow.
partners. It's like,
That's cool
this
shit.
is what I could talk to you about all day, which is how this international space, this mechanical life support system, right, that we've built in space, right, to mimic what Earth does for us
Right.
naturally as our own little spaceship Earth, right? Um, we, for over 20 years, have been living peacefully, successfully with crew members from 15 different countries doing science.
Whoa.
Everything that's up there is ultimately about improving life on Earth.
Right.
The tens of thousands of people across those 5 different international space agencies that are working to that, I would call greater good mission as
Right.
well. And I honestly believe, the relationships we've established there, they help temper the things going on down here too. Even when stuff seems a little like on the edge and everything, I'm
Right.
like, man, we know we have this partnership in space, and that kind of brings us back to Earth a
Right.
little bit to say,
Right.
hey, how should we really behave together, right?
Right.
Perfect example for how we should be living as just a crew of Spaceship Earth and
Right.
not passengers.
I know. I think that's so cool that I don't know who came up with the idea, but making the International Space Station like everyone got involved with it and just like came together and
Yeah.
made this thing happen. And it's just like just floating around. So wait, so there's a crew of 7, but is there always a crew of 7? Do they just rotate, or is it
They
like
do
this?
rotate. There's always at least a crew of 3. I mean, that's the minimum we've gone down to on the space
Wow.
station. And because sometimes, like with when we were just flying on the Soyuz, in between when the shuttle retired and
Right. Right.
now, 3 people would come up before 3 people went home. So you'd have like 9 for a little
Okay.
while, and then 3 would go home. You'd be back to 6 again. Or 3 would go home before the other 3 came up. So you'd have 3 for a little while.
Wow.
But yeah, it's always a rotation of crew members coming through. Some wacky agreement decides which people from which countries are flying when.
Wow.
There's always US and Russian crew members there. And then you'll have a mix of like Japanese, Canadian, or
Right.
European on
That's so
board.
cool.
It's awesome.
That's
And
so awesome.
so beautifully, we're all floating around the dinner table at night, talking
Wow.
about the day, solving the world's problems. It's just humanity, I guess.
Literally,
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
like It's when you said dinner table, you guys eating those things that I can go get at the space museum? The like the open up. Oh, here's my was it the cookie ice cream
Yeah,
sandwich?
not quite as foamy as
Yeah.
that,
Oh,
but most of the food is does need to be rehydrated. We suck all the water out of everything because water's heavy. It costs a lot to send heavy
oh,
stuff to space, so we pull all the water out of it to make it lighter, and I think it has a longer shelf life that way too. But
right.
it's a lot like camping food.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I figured. That's
yeah,
awesome. That
yeah,
so
which is
so
really quite good because it's from all the different countries too.
I was gonna
So
say, yeah, you could bring like from Russia, from Japan, from all kinds of
yeah,
places. That's pretty cool. The
yeah.
did you see the this is kind of jumping forward a little bit, but did you see the potential hotel in space in
Hmm.
2027?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're talking about like the Axiom space station
Yeah,
stuff
that's a
with
no for me, but you'll
yeah,
are you gonna go there? Like
I would love to. And I think who's it, Philippe Stark or something that's doing the interior
yeah,
design.
it's gonna look amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. I think we have so much in like the next 10 years, kind of the things that are going to go on are really, really cool. Yeah, I hope that somebody will invite me to go back.
Oh, dude, literally, you could be like, you could be the welcoming person when they come in.
Please. I
Yeah,
will I will clean the toilets.
yeah,
You just
you'll
send
paint the
me back.
murals.
I will be the one who does all that stuff, takes care of you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we'll definitely talk about the near future because even the last couple years have been
Oh
just like
yeah.
pedal to the metal, just
Yeah.
full throttle. So the space shuttle that you went on, right? So you had the you said the Columbia in 2003, right?
Hmm.
That when you know did that kind of like you were like, hold on a second, like I don't know because I know it was 89 or 88 or something, whatever
Yeah.
what's it called
Challenger.
the Challenger that just from the jump, but you know, I think it was like a minor, not minor, but something like small. It was like obviously an accident for the Columbia. But like, did that deter you to be like, guys, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, or were you just like even more motivated to?
No, I think the motivation was there. I
Right,
can't say that all of a sudden it like, exponentially went up that, oh, I've got to do this now
right,
more
right,
because that's what happened. But I don't feel like I went like, oh, I shouldn't do this anymore and then had to come back up. I think that was steady. I think it was always because I'd had that experience at Kennedy Space Center, I think, working, side by side with the people that like honestly like for them, the care and feeding of those spacecraft is like what they
it's
are
like they're
about,
babies. It's
right?
like,
It
yeah,
really is. And so there's that kind of passion, that kind of expertise in it. And I got to through the astronaut office, got to see a lot more about how NASA management and the contractors responded to that
uh,
accident and the
that's
way
important.
they address the problems that had happened, and that was whether that was a hardware issue or a management issue. Those always tend to kind of blend,
Right,
and
right,
things happen. We're people, and to see it was all taken care of. And I don't know what else could have been done to make me feel even more comfortable about it. It was
right.
just like being part of that. I think made it make sense that this was still something to do. I know every single one of those people on that
Oh,
space shuttle, like know them and know that they would have been like, holy moly, do not stop because of this, figure it out, keep
right,
going.
right,
So there were all those things. Now that doesn't mean when you strap in, just even at any time, that you're not respectful of the 7 million pounds of
right.
exploding
The
rocket
perspective comes
thrust
into
stuff coming
play.
at you that's going to get you off the planet. There's total respect for that. But yeah, I think you feel like you're in
Right, you're in
as
good hands.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Especially since your experience, you've been with them for so long. Like you said, like it gives you that peace of mind. Like personally, for me, I've developed a fear of flying over the past like 5 to 7 years, just flying
Wow.
airplanes. Right. So I have terrible friends that send me gifts of planes crashing and just make when they
Jeez.
know that I'm traveling, they're total asses. But
That could be the problem right
yeah, oh,
there.
big problem. But it's weird because I always find myself like looking for a pilot and like I try to like pick their brain. Like I know that turbulence has never crashed a plane. I know all the stats. I like it's in my favor. Like it's not going to happen more than likely, highly more than likely. But for some reason, I get in my own head. So like, you know, uh, the fear of that alone scares me. So obviously you would have to have like a fear of flying, but I think knowing these people, knowing how much they care, how driven they are, and how particular they are with their work gave you that kind of like peace of mind of like, I'm good. Like,
Well, yeah, I think that really underlies it all. And then the other thing is that pretty much all the training we do is in one way or another about what could hit the fan.
right. Worst
What
case
is going to go
scenario.
wrong?
Right.
How, you're in the sim doing landings and all of a sudden they're throwing something at you like, that's like the near death experience thing.
Right.
And so I think you get this kind of way about you as a crew that's like, okay, whatever humanly possible we can do
Right.
about the stuff that happens, we will do it.
Right.
And then, there's stuff that's
Out of your
it's
control.
always possible that you might not be able to take care of.
Right. Right.
But I mean, I watched in awe, like when on the space station where, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, some emergency alarm is going off on the station. I just was so proud to see how, as a crew, people are floating out of their crew compartments. You're making sure you've accounted for all your crewmates. You're getting to that control center on the
Mm-hmm.
station. You're working in a way that it's like you train like you fly like you train, and it works.
It's perfect.
And you're using the adrenaline for good,
Right.
and
Right.
and then you're like, okay, you go back to bed. It's like maybe not as restful a sleep as it
Right.
was before, but it's like, holy moly, we just did that. We just, figured out that there wasn't a leak on the space station. Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah.
And took care of it. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. So when you see everybody, that takes from all the time that you're spending together before
Yeah.
you go up there. That's why you're saying it's so important, and all the time that you spend on Earth training with these people. Because it's almost like a lot of military guys I talk to, and
Yep.
even cops and stuff I talk to, it's like, I need to make sure that person's got my back and vice versa. So
Yeah.
you need to make sure that person next to you knows what they're doing and can pull their weight. So all you guys can work, together.
Yeah. It's so cool. I mean, I think
That's
about it.
awesome.
I always show that in my presentations to kids, actually to adults too. I always show this picture of our space station crew, and it's when we had one of those overlaps. So we had 9 people on board
Oh,
because 3
wow.
had come up before 3 went home.
Mm.
And we're all in like our blue flight suits with our flags across the front, and we're in there's no up or down, so you're all floating around in these different positions. And we've got clown noses on, we're given the peace sign and stuff. It's like one of my favorite pictures
That's
on
cool.
station. And I show it because I'm like, these are the kind of people you want to work with, that you
Right.
want to be. I mean, wherever that you're working, space, anywhere, you want to enjoy yourself,
Right.
right? You want to have a good time. And yet you want to know when it does hit the fan, when the things don't go right, like they're not always going to,
Right.
that every single one of those people will have your back, you'll have theirs, they trust that you'll have theirs, and you just
Exactly.
do what you need to do.
Right.
Yeah, it's that whole, we use a lot of the same, like the SEAL mottos,
Yeah.
slower is faster, only easy day was yesterday. I mean, all these
Yeah.
kinds of things
Yeah.
that,
Well, it's true. That's a
it is, it's
mindset.
absolutely
That
true.
it's a mindset, and it works, especially in a group setting when you and other people have to rely on each other. It totally
Yeah.
works. So
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Which is
That's
the same
cool.
as what we should be doing down here on this
I
planet,
know. I
right?
know. I know.
Just a
It's like,
bigger crew.
right. Yeah. Way bigger. Yeah. That's man. I still can't. I'm still like picturing in my head as like you're strapped in. And you flew on the shuttle, the big white one, right?
Yep. On Discovery and on Atlantis. Yeah.
Right. So before they retired that model,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
remember they didn't. I don't know if I think they flew it over because they put it in some museum. I think they had it here in DC for a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, Discovery is over at Udvar Hazy with Smithsonian.
oh wow.
So it's there, like sitting, like it was on the runway, and then
Oh my God.
Endeavor's out at the LA Science Center, and Atlantis is here in Florida at the Kennedy Space Center, and they're all in different configurations. It's really cool to
That's
see
cool.
how they've displayed each one a little bit differently. And then the landing and approach vehicle is on the Intrepid. That's why am I drawing a blank on the name of that one? Enterprise is on
Wow.
the Intrepid Museum in New York City. So yeah, they're spread around the country for people to be able to see them.
Those
It's
are
amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like, so you're strapped in, you're flying on the Discovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, please tell me your experience and walk me through what's like. I mean, I'm just picturing like thousands of controls, lights going off. You know,
Uh,
Houston's like, hey, Nicole, we have a problem. Like that's
yeah. Thankfully, we didn't. Well, we heard some of that, but it wasn't because of us. Thankfully, but it was. I'll tell you, nothing. I worked at Kennedy Space Center for 10 years on the Space Shuttle program. I watched how many launches?
right.
I don't know. And in my mind, I had convinced myself I knew what this was going to feel like. I had talked to other people who'd done it, watched all the videos and watched the launches, and nothing. I mean, nothing prepares you for what it actually feels like. I think there's so much emotion and then just like physical stuff going on. And on the space shuttle, we'd get out there to the launch pad a few hours ahead. You get all strapped in. And of course, because the vehicle's pointing, it's like the nose of the airplane pointing up now.
Literally.
So you're laying on your back, in the seat, and getting comfortable. And I mean, I remember napping because, you're out there so far in advance, and the crew didn't really get involved, like actively involved in the countdown until like half an hour, 20 minutes before.
Right.
And so you want to be, comfortable and relaxed. And, but holy moly, when that like 10-9-8 starts,
Oh,
that's when you're like, oh, wow, I might actually go to space today.
yeah, I'm going to not Earth. Yeah.
And and then it was this that cadence of the countdown, and then 6 seconds with the space shuttle is when all of a sudden all that fuel in that big orange tank would start flowing to the 3 little engines on the back of the shuttle. Wow. And they would start, and I remember always thinking, oh, that'll be really, like, I'll really start. But it was like this little vibration, could kind of hear a rumbly noise. The engines are at an angle on the back of the orbiter, the like airplane looking part of the shuttle. And so when they lit, the whole thing tipped forward like 10 feet and then back. And then when it was vertical, that was synced up with 0 on the countdown. And that's when those 2 big white solid rocket boosters lit.
Oh my.
Like 6 million pounds of thrust,
Right.
And so that was like, out of nowhere, it was like getting kicked from behind, getting kicked from the front, 3 of you starting to sit on top of you and shaking like you never imagined, like wondering if you were ever on a launch pad. I mean, honestly, like just the dynamics of your body, I can't even describe it. But and I think back, like, with the designers of this vehicle, because for about the first minute and a half after a shuttle launch, the crew really can't do anything but monitor systems, see what's going on.
Really?
You can't abort yourself. It's like just you're
it's
along for the ride.
Yeah.
You are just along for the ride for the first minute and a half. And I think, I'm like, man, I don't know if they did that deliberately for this reason, but we are human. We have to react to that energy coming through us, So I'm like, it's like no control. Boom, high five just happens with whoever's next to you.
Wow.
The smile on your face just happens. There's like the woohoo. You're like thinking, and it's just this like overwhelming stuff going on physically and just emotionally. And then like two and a half minutes goes by, and those big boosters separate with this big boom and flash. And then you're not shaking anymore, but you're still accelerating. So you feel like you've got 3 of you sitting on your chest.
Right.
And then it, 6 minutes later, the big orange tank separates and you're in space. I mean, you are orbiting, you went from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour.
That fast?
In 8.5 minutes. And now you're circling the planet. It is now you're like floating, the most incredible thing. Yeah.
It happens that fast. So you're already orbiting within 8 minutes.
Yep. Yeah.
What?
It's so cool. And I think, I am a super huge fan of the space shuttle itself, and just the magnificence of that vehicle from every standpoint, the way it supported us as crew, the cargo, where it could go, what it could do. It just, everybody wanted it to do everything, and it did it all pretty well. Yeah.
I'm like actually dumbfounded right now. I can't. I literally am thinking like, oh, it's like a we see you and then you're gone, and it's like, all right, like 20, 30 minutes you might be orbiting. That is insane.
Yeah.
8 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay. And then is that when you guys can like unleash and kind of float around and do your thing?
Well, no, you're not. I mean, you want to because you're, anything that's not tied down is floating up. And if you just relax your arms kind of, my son calls it the
What?
zombie astronaut
Yeah.
thing. If you just relax your arms, just
Oh,
kind of float up, and pencil on the end of its tethers floating around. But
wow.
you want to, but there's about, I don't know, there's at least about 45 minutes of stuff to do with what you described, all those switches and lights and everything that's
Yes.
around you to get safely configured in
Right.
orbit. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And then you're up doing
insane.
all, yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my God. So then okay, so you're in space and orbiting. Don't you have to like, because the space station orbits the Earth, right?
Hmm.
So you have to kind of time it, right? Where it's going to be kind of over us or over you and the Kennedy Center.
Yeah, they have this whole orbital dynamics thing where they figure out. So for launch, we have something called a launch window, right? And it's really this window of time that we have to launch within that time in order to, whether it's overhead of us or not, in order to, in the timing that they want, to be able to chase down the station and intercept it,
Oh,
right? Um,
that's crazy.
and it's, I mean, those are the super smart people that
Yeah,
figure all
that's
that
like,
stuff out. But it's so cool because, you've got the station at one altitude, you've got the shuttle getting up there, orbiting, both are orbiting the Earth. And then somehow you get to a point where you can come and, I mean, it's just, and then you watch the station out the window go from like this tiny dot of light
really.
to like fingernail size station out there that looks like this perfectly shaped space station that's the size of your fingernail, and then it's like in your face, you can't even see from one end to another. It's
And it's huge.
huge.
Wow. And then it's just
It
like
is huge.
black behind
It
it.
is black out there. Yes, the blackest, clearest black just seems like to go on forever. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
dude. That's insane. I would be so
I know.
scared. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah.
What, so when you and then so you see the space station, you're piloting it, you're flying the spaceship right to it.
Yeah, the pilot and the commander of the shuttle are the ones who do that rendezvous. We call it a rendezvous, and then docking with the station. And it's
Oh.
all, I mean, there's some automatic stuff that goes on. It's already
Hmm.
pre-programmed to say, and then we monitor to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to. They can take over if they need to. But there's the last parts of that always were manually flown.
Wow.
And just the kind of delicate nature of it with these two ginormous spacecraft coming together,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And the maneuverability that was had with this, like within that far, like,
Right. That's
things. And
with delicate, it's so delicate
it's
too.
just, yeah, it's crazy to see this happen. And then you get this shuttle is docked to the space station. Now you got these two hatches, you get them open, and then you can float in between both, like leave the
Wow.
shuttle and go into the station, leave the station, come into the shuttle. It's like you've added another big module
Right.
to the station when you dock. And
How big is the
uh,
station?
well, the station itself, like if you look at the picture that shows all the solar arrays and
Hmm.
everything on it, if you lay that down on the ground, it's bigger than a football field. Yeah. And then it weighs about 1 million pounds, but of course not up there. And
Oh my
then
God.
each, there's these modules that kind of look like cans. I don't think I have I don't have a space station module mock up here, but each of the modules is like the size of a school bus, maybe, right?
Oh
There's a
my
bunch of those,
gosh.
like 10 of them, I think, stuck together.
Right.
So inside where we live, where we're just wearing our normal clothes in a pressurized environment, they equate it to like a big 6-bedroom house, right? But imagine in that big 6-bedroom house that you weren't just stuck to the floor, that you can
Right.
use the whole volume.
Yeah, I could like float
Everything is
upstairs.
usable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is huge. I mean, I could go to one end of the station and not see my 5 crewmates all day if I didn't want to.
Really?
It's that big. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So then
Yeah.
how did they get it up there?
Well, they flew it piece by piece. And so they flew up one module inside the shuttle and one on a Russian vehicle. And then they were stuck together in space. And then they just kept coming up like that over time. And we'd do spacewalks to hook all the wires together and have the robotic arm to stick
What?
them together. It's really
That's amazing.
pretty incredible. Yeah. There's a
That is
really great
incredible.
there's a really great like time-lapse video that you can, I think at the NASA site, or you can just search it in general, that's
Right.
like space station assembly in space or
And
something.
it's a time
And it
lapse
shows
of it.
how all of these modules come together over time.
I need to find this.
Yeah. That's really cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's like, because I'm thinking like, all right, well, how now we know how you got there. How the hell did this giant football field
And then
size
we built it
facility?
up there.
Yeah, and then like
And
you
it's like
built it in
hardware built
space.
by all these partner countries too.
Wow.
Somehow we figured out how that, you know, we make these things in these different places, we communicate properly, and then when we get it to space, oh my gosh, it sticks together and works. Look at
That's
that.
incredible. That's incredible. That makes you like to your point earlier about like just talking about like humanity down here and stuff like that. If you can, if we can do that in space,
I know. I know.
like,
And I
come
think
on.
about it, it's like any challenge that we have. You know, we got to the moon, we're going back to the moon, we're doing this International Space Station program because we decided we can.
Right,
Right.
right, exactly.
You know, one of the greatest mottos that I've gotten from like the very first days of working for NASA is, and I've got it here because I always show this to kids, so I'll show it to you. But it's like my little astronaut with the motto, here's how we can, not why we can't. Right.
That's awesome.
And it's so true, right? You go into it believing there's a solution to the challenging problem, and then you just figure out how you can do it. You know? Now you might not be able to because whatever that, but you can figure out how to do it.
Right.
And yeah, that's what needs to happen down here.
Right. Do you think that I want to talk about your spacewalk, but I have a question.
Okay.
Do you think that like we're gonna eventually end up on like Mars and stuff?
Oh yeah, I do. I know. Look at you. If you want
the last one on Earth, I'm like, listen, guys, I'll hang out
I'm
here.
just lounging here on the big park called Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's so cool about that, like going to Mars, going back to the moon, having more space stations, you know, the commercial stuff that's going to go on in space, all of it really, I mean, it really is all about improving life here on Earth.
Right.
You know, in one way or another. And I just think people need to know that, right? It's not,
I don't think a lot of
I always
people
get
do.
the question, why are you spending so much money in space? And I'm like, well, first of all, there's not a cent of money spent in space.
Yeah.
It's all spent down here.
Right.
It's all spent down here. And then we could spend all day talking about why we do that. You know, we wouldn't be doing this if we hadn't done that. You know, so much of what just is integral to our daily lives now was and is a result of us going to space. And I personally believe if we don't keep doing it, if we don't keep expanding that, you know, that exploration of space, we won't solve the challenges down here if we don't do that. It takes that kind of innovation and, you know, spin off and all of that kind of thing to bring it back to Earth in the most meaningful way.
Right. No, I've never thought of it like that, but hearing someone who's been to space, who obviously has been to Earth and kind of can see it from a, you know, a higher level, I think that makes total sense. And you know, the one thing that I think is probably most for me living vicariously through you that is most terrifying is when you're on the space station and you talked about like putting these things together and stuff like that, like you physically came out of the space station and you're in the little white, that thing behind you, you're in the suit and you're floating around like, okay, I think of the movie Gravity. I think of Sandra Bullock. I think of like George Clooney just like floating and just being like, all right, see ya. Like, you know, so
that was so Titanic moment there.
It was. It was amazing. But tell me, run me through this. Like, does each one of you have to do this, or you were like, hey, I want to go, or were they selected you? Like,
we all train for it. And then when the mission assignments are made, you know, I mean, all this stuff gets divvied out, you know, for whatever reason, to different crew members to do different things. And just was very fortunate to get to do a spacewalk. Very thankful for it. I mean, everything about, just like you're saying, everything about being in space on a station, on the shuttle, surreal, total, a word you can apply to it, right? But I would say the surrealist of it all is going out in your own little personal spaceship, crawling out the hatch, putting your tether on, you know, crawling all over the outside of the space station, seeing all that now through this visor, that and you're like, wow, this is it between me and
Right. Yeah.
but that's going on the whole time. This what's it between me and all of that on a normal basis up there,
Right.
the hull of the space, whatever it is.
Right.
But just to have that, I think it's a much more intimate kind of thing.
Definitely.
It's you're out there with your buddy who's in one of these suits too. So you feel that connection to someone. All the people inside the space station are there supporting you. So you feel that connection. All the mission control people are there. Their whole role is not just for you to get the task done, but for you to safely
make sure you don't
make it back inside afterwards too, and your family and friends are watching you. So it was weird to be out there like by yourself, kind of in this little suit, like the alonest you are.
Yeah, right.
And yet feel so connected to just everyone.
That's incredible
as well. Really, really cool.
That is so when you're like out there and you're like looking up and you're just seeing like, I saw a time lapse of like space, and it was like comparing like all the planets and stuff, and then it pulled away from like our like solar system, and then it pulled away from our galaxy, and then it showed all the other galaxies, and it pulled away from all the galaxies, and I'm like, holy shit. Like if I'm up there, if like in your situation, like were you looking up, do you think of that stuff and you're like, what, the numbers are in the favor of like, there has to be some sort of life or something out there that's not us. Like, do you ever think like, damn, a spaceship is going to just come by and like scoop me up? Or are you just like, are you just that focused on your work? Maybe even, I don't know.
Well, I think when you're out on the spacewalk, there's a couple sides of it. It's like, there are times to kind of take a break and look around like, wow, that's a planet.
Right.
Look at that. I live on a planet. Holy moly.
Right.
And then there's the like, look out into this, what seems infinite, which we're told is, space kind of thing. But there's a diligence that goes along with that job that just, I think you first come out and you're like, oh, wow, look at that big distraction down there, that beautiful distraction. And you're like, okay, I gotta
do this.
I gotta think about my tether. I gotta think about, my crewmate, all that stuff. But in the grander scheme of it, I think you're thinking about that all the time, just like, because in your free time, especially, you're going to find yourself in front of a window. I mean, that's just what astronauts do if they've got spare time. Our heads are buttoned, floating in front of the windows, looking out, looking at Earth, getting it real dark in the station during a night pass, and like looking out past Earth to, and I mean, when you get it dark on the space station and it's dark outside, it's like there's this like web of stars out there. I mean, it just looks like it goes on forever, and like you can reach into it and stuff, and everything's so cool. Glowing and crystal clear, and it's just this like awe and wonder that is there, and I don't think you can ignore it. And you think about this connection you have to the planet, and all the people in life that share it down below with you. I mean, you feel very connected to that, but then you also, like I said, you're like, wow, that's a planet.
Right. That's
I'm on.
Literally.
I'm not, I'm on a spaceship now, but that planet is in space.
That's where I live. Yeah. It's like floating too. It's like,
rotating at what, 1,000 miles an hour?
Like what?
And spinning around the sun at 60 something.
Like, how does your head not explode? Like when you're thinking about this stuff, you're like, this is like crazy to even fathom. And you're literally
I think we need to think about this stuff every day. We need to find kind of that. I don't know if it is the meditation, or go out and put put your feet in the dirt or the grass and just think about them connected to a planet and look up, and just take a minute every day to have that reality check of who and where we are. I think it's hugely significant, and just kind of it can seem wacky, like, oh my gosh, I'm on a planet spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, but I just feel like I'm standing here. How cool is that?
Right.
It can be a bit overwhelming, but it can also be, I think, just so grounding to say, okay,
100%.
Just need to chill in this a little bit, and
100%.
Just acknowledge the life around me, the awe around me, and be thankful too, even when stuff sucks. But, sometimes it does. So
I'm that same mindset too. I've always been like, just like 2017, this is like nothing compared to like being an astronaut and going to space, but I went to, my family's out in Washington State, and I went out to Rainier, and for some reason, I'm not like an outdoorsy person. I've never really been that like to kind of, I'm basically what you're basically saying people need to do is like, okay,
Yep.
stop and smell the roses.
Yep.
And I'm on this like mountain that's, 16 or 15, 14,000 feet high. It's the highest mountain in the continental US, stuff like that. And I'm talking about perspective. So I can only imagine
Mhm.
being off the planet, being like, okay, like our problems down there are nowhere near anything that we are really making them out to be. So I just, I totally agree with you. And I think that I wish people had more of that mindset of like, stop and smell the roses. Just really think of like how
Yeah.
bad your life is and just look up and just like, there's so much more that's more important. I don't know. I totally agree with that. I'm just going
Well,
off
I
the
love what
tangent.
you're saying because to me, I would describe that as you had an Earthrise moment,
Okay.
right? Think about that when we first got that. You were probably not born yet. Now, I was 6 when Apollo 8 flew around the moon for the first time, and they took
Right.
that iconic image, right, of Earthrise.
Right.
And that was like
From
humanity,
the moon to the earth, you mean?
from the moon, seeing Earth kind
Yes.
of rising above the horizon of the moon. And,
Wow.
they were like, whole, get the camera, kind
Right.
of thing. And then it was shared with us on like Christmas Eve of 1968.
Wow.
And that was that moment. We'd seen some of those images with robotic probes before, but that was
Mhm.
like human eyes taking a
Right.
picture and sharing it with us. And like humanity got this look at themselves. Like that is who and where you are.
Right.
And I'm like, I get it every time I think of it. We all need to find that. That's what happened to you on Mount Rainier.
It
You're like, oh
100%.
my gosh, awe and wonder.
Right.
And you don't have to go to space to
True.
feel that, right? That's like part of my mission now is like, I want people, I highly recommend it. Go to space, please. It is incredible. I will not downplay shape or form. But when I hear a lot of people kind of struggling with this idea that they can't have that same kind of internal feeling, that same understanding unless they go to space, I'm like, come on. I'm looking in my backyard and I could
Literally.
be like overwhelmed by that little red flower. But to stop and smell the roses thing, it's like,
Yep.
I don't know how to make that flower. How, I could get so caught up in the deepness of anything out. My
It's
dogs, look at that dog. How awesome is she?
literally, Nicole,
And
a
you need
hundred
to do
percent,
that. Got to do it.
100%. Yep. I know me
Yeah.
and my fiance, we've been really like making it a thing to like go and like whether it's going hiking and even like
Mhm.
local places, like going to the Potomac River. I'm like, holy shit, like this thing is amazing.
Yeah.
And I've never even been here before. And it's in my backyard. Even we
Right.
go to the
That's
monuments.
the worst, isn't it? We
I
always
know. Oh
do
my
that to
God.
ourselves.
I lived in like some of the cool, I lived in New York for years and I was like, never would go to Manhattan. I went a couple of times, but I'm like, okay, this is too much. This is like Times
Yeah.
Square. Forget, no, I don't want to do it. But then it's like, I hate leaving a place where I live and like, damn, I wish I did this
Right.
more or whatever. So I don't do that
Yeah.
anymore. I'm from DC, but I mean, we go to the monuments all the time. And it's every
Good.
single time, without a doubt, it's like, wow, like
Yep.
that's amazing. Like, you know what I mean? Like just little stuff like that. And you're exactly right. You don't have to go even out of the country.
Yeah.
The United States of America has some amazing
Yeah.
places throughout. And I agree with you.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
It's
Yeah.
insane. And it's like, you're right. You let your mind go. You really kind of got to let your mind go a little bit and think, like, wow, how did this even happen? Like,
Yeah.
like the flower, like my dog. It's crazy. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I wish more
And you got
people
to open yourself up to it too. I
100%.
think that's a precursor is that, we can get so wrapped in stuff that we don't like make ourselves available to it.
Right.
But even in space, I could have closed the blinds on the window and just done my science and never looked out and floated and talked to my crew, but not,
Right.
I could have chosen not to do that.
Right.
Why would you? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
It's, yeah.
but that's kind of what we do here, and then you got to open up the heart, the mind, all of it to like appreciate it.
You really do. Yeah, you got to get out of that tunnel vision and blinders down type situation. And I think that's like to your point earlier of like the humanity and stuff like that. Everybody just it's like the rat race. It's like everybody.
Yeah.
I think COVID was terrible, but a lot of it, especially in the beginning and in the middle of it, I think really put some perspective on people. Of like really showed and kind of brought out like, wow, what's really important to
Yeah.
me and my family and all that. I don't know, just when things that you can't do that you've taken for granted, you can't do anymore. I think adds a little bit of,
And it
kind
didn't
of
matter who you are. It doesn't matter who you
right.
are. It didn't discriminate in any way.
Oh,
Every corner of the planet has, or I should say, every like curved part of the
yeah,
planet has been affected. And I think it really raised this awareness of what you do see from space, the interconnectivity of everything.
right.
There's not a single thing down here that isn't in one way or another affecting every other life form on this planet.
Right.
And yeah, COVID definitely did that
Definitely.
to us, for us, whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But hopefully we use it though too. Let's use what we learn from it to emerge in some kind of hybrid, better way
Yeah.
from our isolation.
That's what I'm hoping. I hope it's not like a news cycle situation where it's like, oh, that just happened. That didn't happen.
We got to
like 10
catch
years
up.
ago.
Yeah.
Like let's take a break for a second. Yeah, I agree. What was I going to say? Let's talk about the kind of what's happening. I don't know how much. Well, I'm going to go that much longer, but I just have a couple more questions.
Okay.
And let me know if you got to go. Trust me, throw me out of
Okay.
here. I think what's happened in the last just even 5 years. I mean, obviously with Elon Musk coming along and being such an innovator that he is, he's kind of selected space to be like his next thing that he wanted to do. And I think he's, from the rockets coming back down by themselves and like all these things that are going to cost, save money, obviously, and you could reuse things and stuff like that. But the fact that we have a rover on Mars today, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of
several.
Oh, there's several.
Yeah, this is just one in a series of rovers on Mars. Yeah.
Right now, there's more.
Just the latest one. Yeah.
What?
I know. Isn't that crazy time? Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So he wants to get to the moon. I know that's like not his main goal, but one of his main goals is to get us back to the moon. And
he wants to go live on Mars.
I know he definitely wants to live on Mars. So, I mean, what are your thoughts? And I'm sure you're probably so excited about like the progression that's happened thus far. Because for the longest time, I mean, we haven't even been to the moon since we went to the moon. So, like that, there's been such a large gap. And I know there was funding issues with a lot of stuff happened. So, like, it's how are you feeling about like all this like progression?
Well, I love it. I mean, as you can imagine, I mean, I'm the person who's like, where are my flying cars? That was
literally
already too, But yeah, I think what's so great about the way it's moving forward now too is that it's, these companies are coming on, taking on things independently, but it's all really being done as a partnership, like this public-private partnership. What Elon and SpaceX are doing right now, starting to fly crews back to the space station, that's all this partnership going on. NASA providing, a chunk of the funding to get that going. It's kind of like the old airline days, where it started out as a government thing and then it was this merger and then, evolved. I think we have so much to look forward to, and SpaceX is just one of many companies that's, looking at the transportation, the habitability in these places, the farther, far Earth, away from Earth travel kinds of things. And, and then everything that'll go along with getting us there is going to improve the way we live down here.
Right.
And if you look at it too, it's like, you've got Jeff Bezos with Amazon that has the company Blue Origin that's also looking at, this off the planet space stuff. And his motivation, my husband, who is like a sci-fi fanatic expert, all of that, he's like, oh, Jeff Bezos read this sci-fi author. Musk read this sci-fi author. They all have kind of their
influences,
sci-fi influences.
Yeah.
And, for Bezos, it's really about how do we lift the stuff that's harmful to our planet, the way we live here off Earth, take care of that in space to provide whatever it did to us on Earth. And then Earth really does become this place we live.
Wow.
This place that is, like a park almost.
Right.
And there's several philosophers and scientists who, O'Neill and these other guys that thought about that in the same way too, is like Earth should be our home, right? Get that industrial, we talk about solar power. Let's get that stuff up in space and have space-based solar power that provides everyone on the planet with all the energy we need.
Right.
And we're not harming the Earth to do that.
Right. So, that's amazing. I didn't even know that.
So much going on.
As long as they put a Whole Foods on Mars, I'm just kidding. No, that's incredible. I didn't know
Yeah.
that Bezos was so basically what they want to do is they want to take, like you said, all the harmful stuff, like
Yeah.
and just go do it on other, maybe even other planets or just out in space somewhere,
In
so it's not harming
space,
the Earth.
on the moon, there's ways that we can utilize the moon, and we can do it respectfully too. We don't have
Right.
to go up and trash the
I
moon. We
know.
just
Yeah. It's
use
like
the moon for what the moon, I mean, it's like this, like heaven sent space station. It's there for us, right? It's the
right.
high ground actually.
Wow.
And there's so much about what we can do as we go back to the moon and establish this permanent settlement there,
Right.
permanent presence for utilizing the moon on the moon, utilizing the moon for life on Earth, and then helping us get in a much more straightforward fashion off the moon to Mars than, or in space around the moon to Mars versus trying to lift all that off of Earth to go to
Right.
Mars.
Right. So it takes what, 8 months to get to Mars? How long does it take to get
Right now it's about 8 to 9 months to get there.
to
And
Mars?
then
Yeah.
you get there, it's going to be that long to get back, but you can't just come back anytime you want, because you want the planets to be aligned in a way that makes that the shortest trip, right? So at its shortest, I think it's what, 35 million miles away. The farthest we've been away is to the moon with people is 250,000 miles away. So it's significantly different for the
Whoa.
travel to,
What?
Mars. Yeah.
So how long does it take to get to the moon?
The way we do it, the little route we take, 2 days.
Damn. So
Yeah.
so then why haven't we been back then? If we can go to the space station, if we can go to Mars, why
I'm
can't we
with
just
you, brother. Yeah. Namaste.
all right, my
I always think
conspiracy
like
theories
often,
coming
there's
out.
this new show out called For All Mankind. It's about like this alternative like history for
Yeah.
landing on the moon and what goes on there. And I really like it. But I often think like, not so much that scenario, but what if we had just never stopped going?
Oh my God,
What
could
if
you
we had just
imagine?
kept going, didn't stop it, and then we had other programs evolve in parallel with it? I just think
Your flying cars would be here more than
I
likely.
think we would have had our like our auto flying cars. I wouldn't even had to
Right.
fly it,
Right. I agree.
And yeah, so I hope the momentum that we've got with the space station, first of all, the international relationships we've established. That's like pivotal.
Right.
That's like
It's
life
huge.
changing kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Yeah.
And that continues. For over 20 years, we've been with people orbiting the planet every 90 minutes on that
Wow.
station, working together. Um, it's like this first stage of continuous human presence in
Right.
space. I mean, my
Right.
son is 18. For as long as he's been alive, people have been circling the planet.
That's
That's pretty
insane.
incredible.
That's
Yeah.
insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's is he want to be an astronaut?
I think he would love to go to space. I don't think he necessarily wants to be an astronaut. I think he got
Right.
asked that question way too much when he was growing up.
I
Oh, your mom said,
bet.
"Oh, you must want to be an astronaut."
Want to
He's
be
like,
an astronaut, right,
no, I
Timmy?
think maybe I don't want to be that,
Yeah. Classic.
But
Classic.
he's learning to fly. He's like the most naturally talented scuba diver I've ever
That's awesome.
seen. I mean, really cool kid. So, and that's one of the things, like for me, for my future, I'm like, what's he gonna do?
Right. Yeah.
What cool
Yeah.
stuff is he
You can
gonna
live
do that
vicariously
really is
through
gonna be
him.
about like doing something good? Yeah.
Right. That's cool. And so he's a good scuba. You mentioned water. I think
Yeah.
another thing, the ocean itself. I mean, what's like 90% of it's never even been like discovered, which is
Yeah.
crazy. So like you were in a tank underwater
Yeah.
to simulate what it was like to be in outer space.
Yeah.
That is probably because I'm also scared of the ocean.
Yeah.
So
Well, I had to actually, I was always before that. I mean, I was always like a recreational scuba diver. I wanted to go, do my thing,
Right.
see the fishes and the coral and everything.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, don't touch my mask.
Yeah.
I need my regulator in my mouth. You don't need to mess with that stuff.
Yeah.
Keep your fins out of my face,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to do that Aquarius mission, that undersea mission, you had to do some pretty advanced like scuba skill stuff. And you had to do a swim test before you could even get into the scuba skill stuff.
Right.
And I had never been a strong swimmer. And so I had to like physically and mentally overcome
Wow.
some things just to be able to do that, because I didn't want to get to the training for that and be the one that's like,
Yeah.
like freaking out,
Who's this one?
swim
Yeah.
into the surface,
Yeah.
and
Good
getting
job,
all the
Nicole.
nitrogen. But no,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to be that person. So I had to figure out, okay, how do I need to practice to do the swim test. I need to know I can do twice as much as they want me to do
Right.
so that when I get down there, I'm comfortable doing it.
Right.
I need to know I'm going to be comfortable with my mask off, with my regulator out, so I had people help me with that.
Wow.
And it's one of, like, to me, I'm really, really proud of that because I was afraid of it.
Right.
Before. I really was afraid of it. And so overcame that in some way and able to do it. But oh my gosh, it's this off the coast of Key Largo,
Wow.
about 60, I think it's like 5 miles off the coast, like 60 feet underwater is this, it's like this yellow submarine looking thing. It's about the size of a
What?
school bus called Aquarius. It sits on, on the ocean floor there. And yeah, you get down there, once you're down there for an hour, you just can't swim safely to the surface, right? Because your body, just like when you go on dive, you got the dive tables. I can be down this long,
Oh,
like this
wow.
there, because you don't want the nitrogen, you get all that nitrogen in your body,
Right.
you get the bends or something. Well, if you're down long enough, your body becomes so saturated that if you did go to the surface, you're just going to probably kill yourself. There's not, or be really life-threatening. So
Right.
you're underwater. The habitat is like a station module in that you can walk around in regular clothes. You're not in water the whole time.
Oh, cool.
It's at the depth pressure. So you can swim in and out of it. You just can't go above it. You got to
Right.
stay
Right.
at that depth or lower.
Right.
We just treated it exactly like we would if we were in space. If you're going to go outside, you have to put on your spacesuit or
Right.
your, scuba gear.
Right.
We communicated with our topside team just the way we would with mission control on the ground, and kind of ate food the way you would on station. We did all
Right.
kinds of science. We had a real mission as part of this training thing. And it's another one of those really incredible places, on
Yeah.
Earth, that it's the only one of its kind, undersea lab like it of its kind right now. And it just needs to be, I don't know, more people need to know about it too.
I agree. That I didn't even know
Yeah.
that was a thing. That's
Yeah.
incredible. How long were you down there?
18 days.
Whoa.
It was awesome. It was so awesome. And now I kind of think about it. We kind of joke, oh, we go to live in inner space so we can learn how to live and work in outer space, right? Like the planet surrounding you, seeing it again from a whole new perspective.
Right.
We felt like we were the ones in the fish tank, right? The two big grouper would come up and look in the window like, oh, who's there now? Like we were in their world.
Right.
And
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And the fact that it wasn't like at the Kennedy Space Center where like you were around it all the time and you were used to it. You felt
no,
comfortable.
It's very different for me.
Very different. That's incredible.
Different. Yeah.
That's insane. All right. Well, all right. New book and art.
Yes. Okay.
Art. Let's talk about art. So what are you doing on the art scene? I know you're basically like a Picasso.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
no, you're good. I think you're a fantastic artist. And the fact that we talked about this before we really got on was like the fact that like you're really like combining the science and the art and stuff like that. So I think that's fascinating. So, tell me a little bit more about like what you're doing in those communities and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I had the chance to paint while I was in space. I did a watercolor painting. I brought up watercolor paints and did a watercolor painting there. And
that's sick.
Really, people have been doing art and music in space since the very beginning, right? But I brought up watercolors, was the first one to do that, had no idea at the time. And, so floating balls of water to dip the brush in and dragging the colored balls of water. It was incredible. But when I was thinking about retiring from NASA, which is a difficult decision to make, I was in line to fly in space again. I probably would have flown in space again, but I was just feeling this need to like do something different.
Right.
And I knew those things like with the art and stuff like that, I wouldn't have been able to do it necessarily while still, being in the astronaut office. And my son was getting ready to start high school. And all these things going on that just it was more important for me to be doing something else then.
Right.
And so I answered the question, do I need to fly in space again? And if I answer that honestly, the answer is no, I don't need to fly in space. I want to. When I'm 92, ask me. Yes, the answer is yes. But anyway, so I went off on this new mission of I'm going to use art to share the spaceflight experience. People are going to know about that International Space Station because when they talk to me about my art, I'm going to share the backstory of that picture or that painting you see is based on a picture I took from space, right? And then they can be the ones with the app on their phone that tells them when the space station's flying over. They'll be excited about it.
Right.
And they need to know about what astronauts experience in space that really makes you feel this connection to the planet. You know, that we live on a planet, we're all Earthlings. Only border that matters is that thin blue line of atmosphere, those kinds of things, right? And I thought I could do that with my art. And I started doing that. It was really working out fine. And then I got introduced to an artist in Houston who had started the art and medicine program at the Pediatric Cancer Center at MD Anderson there. And amazing guy, Ian Sion. And he always would do projects with the kids where they would paint or create something individual, and then he would put it together in some like ginormous dragon thing where every
Wow.
scale was one of the kids' artwork, or you would put it on a, you know, big mural or wrap buses with it or what, you know, whatever.
That's so cool.
And he called it, you know, like community art. He wanted them to feel like they were part of something bigger, right?
Right.
And for it to be therapeutic for them as well while they're going through what you hope is the worst thing they ever have to deal with
Right. Right.
entire lives. And so I got invited to participate with him, and he wanted to do something with space. Actually, his idea was that he should be sent to the space station as the artist in residence. And I said, damn it, Ian, if anybody's going and doing that, it's going to be
Yeah, they're going to call you.
but no, I said, go, good on you, dude. I mean, you got to ask, right? It doesn't happen unless you ask. And we're still hopeful that might happen for him. But we
That'd
ended
be
up with
sick.
spacesuits. I mean, spacesuits became the thing that became the project. And I mean, we started with kids in one hospital in Houston. The suit you see behind me is kids from hospitals and refugee centers in over 50 countries around the world.
Wow.
A couple of these suits have flown to the space station, and we've had the crew member will wear it up there. And then we've had video conferences with the kids in the hospitals and
That's
the
so
mission
cool.
control centers. And it's just evolved. People loved it and the kids loved it. We felt like they were, I mean, I was certainly inspired through it, but we felt
Right.
there was evidence of them feeling better, of them becoming stronger when they came into these art sessions, right? Sitting up straighter, talking to the people next to them, talking to me about their future, you
Right.
know? Like they might not have wanted to go to space, but space exploration is really inspirational,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, they get this confidence
So,
about them after.
yeah, and so we formed a little foundation called Space for Art Foundation, because I'll tell you, one of the reasons we did that, I mean, we were just 4 people kind of independently doing this stuff, right? But when you start working with hospitals in other countries and you want to involve their kids and things, they're like, you know, who are you and why should I let you do anything anywhere near these kids? And it's been great because we've continued with the art spacesuits, but we've done some other projects too. And we're working on a suit right now called Beyond, where we are, I mean, I'm knocking on the wood here, cross my fingers, all of it. We're hopeful to get at least one piece of art from a kid in every country on the planet.
Whoa.
And while we're still focused a lot on hospitals and refugee centers, we've opened it up just because with all this COVID stuff going on, every kid is feeling isolated.
Going through something.
Every kid is like, life is different. They need to feel better.
Right.
That's incredible. And so that should be done before the end of the year. And we're going to have it on display at the UN Climate Change Conference in Scotland in November. And while we can never promise it, we're really hopeful that we might be able to get this new suit up to the station at some point too.
That would be sick.
I just, so our motto is that we are uniting a planetary community of children through the awe and wonder of space exploration and the healing power of art. And I think it just, I mean, it fits perfectly with it.
Yeah, that like encapsulates that's it right there.
So cool to see.
That's so cool. So you said by the end of the year.
We'll have it done before November because the
climate
in November, and so we'll have it ready for that. And
that's going to be insane looking.
It's really going to be very cool. I mean, we're already starting to lay out. We're getting all the artwork is coming in, and we're starting to lay out the design for the suit.
Right.
It's going to be gorgeous.
That's going to
every single one of these suits has been fantastic.
Yeah, those things are insane. Like that's like
just,
and they're stitched
and every
together.
astronaut wants to wear this kind of suit now.
I was going to say, the old school white one. It's like, let's get some art in here. So, but you said they're stitched together. They're not just like plastered on there.
So it's I mean, it's difficult to see from here, but you can kind of see the lines on it.
Right.
These are some bigger pieces, but each one of the pieces is an original piece of artwork on kind of a canvas that
Right.
then ILC Dover, who, oh my gosh, they're our real spacesuit company. They make those gorgeous white
Yeah.
spacesuits that
Yeah.
I got to do a spacewalk in.
Right.
And they have volunteered every step of the way with us
That's
to
incredible.
quilt this artwork together into these suit covers. And
Good for
they're
them.
just
Good.
stunning. They're really
That's
stunning.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. And
Yeah.
then what about is your book about art or is it about your experience in space?
My book, it's not a memoir.
I was like,
It's not about, we don't need to hear that
it's
story.
all
It's
about you, Nicole. Yeah.
maybe the kids' book, the kids' book.
That'd be
For
awesome. You're doing a kid's
I think
book?
that would be fun. I think that would be fun.
You should definitely do a kid's book.
I would love to do a kids' book.
Oh my
But
God. Are you
that
kidding
one,
me?
this book is called Back to Earth. It's about a
Mhm.
lot of the stuff we already talked about.
Right.
How is it that, it really is this, how we have this just wonderful example in the space station and the way we live and work together there, and every aspect of it,
Right.
about how we should be applying that down here together on
That's so cool.
spaceship Earth.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, how to live like an Earthling.
Right. That's funny you say that because that's one thing that I notice all the documentaries I've ever seen, anytime I've ever heard an interview from an astronaut, they always mention the number one thing was the connection that they realized with Earth, every single one of them. And it's
Yep.
like, it's not like, oh, I heard this one say it, so I'm going to say it. It's like they
Yeah.
genuinely had this like aha moment where it's like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah, I call that the Earthrise Moment.
I
You
like
had
that.
it
I'm
on
taking
Rainier.
that.
You had
Yeah,
it on Rainier.
Earthrise.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
It's just, yeah, you can't deny it. I mean, some are more eloquent about it than others, I
Right.
think, but it gets in you, I think, no matter who you are, and you want to do something with it, right?
100%.
You want to take it. I mean, that's why I honestly feel like I feel like I got to go fly in space so I could do this stuff.
Right. You're giving people
I
Earthrise moments,
really
basically.
do. I feel like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, here's my next mission.
Right.
It's not like I would have people say to me, oh, Nicole, you got to fly in space and do this astronaut thing. How could anything? I mean,
Right.
you must be so upset that you'll never do
Right.
that again. You're
This
like,
probably
who
trumps
says
that.
I to do it again? I might, who knows?
Right.
But like my life is over because I don't get to fly. I'm like, dude, aren't you supposed to take what you've experienced and then apply it to something even better, maybe?
Right.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. And let's think of all the
No,
good things
very
you're
happy
doing for
about
these
this book.
children and these kids. And
it's
just
so cool.
It's incredible. I love it. I'm gonna get the is it on Amazon, the book?
The book is out for pre-order now. Yes,
Right.
so please pre-order.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If you
Absolutely.
go on my website, I've got a link to where my publisher has the links for pre-order. Yeah,
Perfect.
definitely Amazon is a way to go. And then it'll be out in October.
Perfect. All right. And is there any way I could get it if I could ship it to you? Will you sign it and ship it back to me? or no?
Absolutely. Actually, if you pre-order, it's going to come with, through the publisher, it'll come with like a special book that we're going to do.
Oh,
But then you
perfect.
could also ship it to me and I could write something nice to you.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll pre-order it and I'll go for the publisher because I know a lot of. I'll
Yeah.
just go through the publisher. Yeah, send me what email. Send me the link.
I'll send you
and
the links
yeah,
and everything.
I'll do that for sure. But thank you so much for taking the time and talking
Absolutely.
to me.
Really appreciate
I
it.
really
We
appreciate it. I know.
you how
I've been like
responsive I am on
stalking you for
LinkedIn.
months. I know. Yeah. Literally.
So
All right,
lame
well,
I am. Yes.
you're not lame. You're fucking badass. I already told you. Sorry, I cussed. That's another episode for the E Force was a podcast.